When Daniel told Emily he wanted to take her out for dinner, she imagined a romantic restaurant, soft lights, polished tables, maybe even a waiter in a crisp uniform. She had carefully chosen her outfit. A simple yet elegant dress, styled her hair, and even put on her favorite perfume. But when his car pulled up in front of a small roadside diner, her heart sank a little. The neon sign outside flickered unevenly, some letters burnt out, and the building looked worn from years of neglect. The parking lot had cracks, spiderwebbing across the asphalt, and the faded lines barely marked the spaces. It was far from the picture-perfect first date she had envisioned. Still, Emily stepped out, trying to hide her hesitation. Inside, the diner smelled of strong coffee, fried food, and something sweet baking in the oven. The tables were sticky, and the red vinyl booths had seen better days, with small tears patched over in several places. A jukebox in the corner played a soft, scratchy tune from decades ago. Daniel, however, didn't seem concerned at all. He greeted the elderly waitress by name, exchanged a few kind words, and smiled warmly as if he belonged there. They slid into a booth near the window. Without glancing at the menu, Daniel ordered 2 cheeseburgers and 2 vanilla milkshakes. Emily blinked in surprise. This was clearly not the upscale experience she had pictured. He didn't need to save money. His watch looked expensive. His car was sleek, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. So why here? Was he testing her? Or was this place important to him somehow? As they began talking, Emily felt herself relaxing. Daniel listened intently to her stories, asking thoughtful questions about her art, her childhood, and her dreams. He didn't glance at his phone once. He laughed genuinely at her jokes and shared his own stories in return, making her feel heard and understood. Slowly, the initial disappointment began to fade. Then Emily noticed him glance toward the counter. A young mother sat there with a small boy, quietly counting coins beside a half-eaten plate of food. Daniel's eyes softened, and his expression shifted in a way that caught Emily off guard. She couldn't tell what he was planning, but something about the way he watched them suggested that this first date might turn into something far more remarkable than either of them expected. Little did she know what happened next in that small diner would shock everyone present and change the way she saw Daniel forever. Emily's curiosity was piqued as she watched. Daniel's eyes linger on the young mother and her child. He leaned slightly toward her, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. "Wait here for a second," he said with a calm smile. Before she could ask what he meant, he stood up and walked toward the counter. Emily's heart raced, not from nerves about him leaving her alone, but from a strange anticipation. She couldn't help noticing the way the mother's shoulders tensed when Daniel approached. He spoke quietly to the waitress, nodding toward the young woman and her plate. The waitress glanced at Emily and Daniel, then hurried over to the table with a kind, knowing smile. The mother looked startled, her eyes wide, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Daniel returned to their booth a few minutes later, sliding back into the seat with the same warm, easy smile, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Emily's mind was racing. What had he done? Why did he seem so calm? The mother and her child were still sitting at the counter, but now they had a fresh plate of food in front of them. Emily's eyes softened. She could see the relief in the mother's face, the gratitude in her small smile, and the way the child's eyes lit up at the simple gesture of being able to eat without worry. It was a small act, something that might have gone unnoticed in any ordinary day, but it was huge to those two. Emily turned to Daniel, her voice catching slightly. You did that for them?" He nodded, his gaze meeting hers. "Sometimes kindness doesn't need an occasion," he said softly. "Some people just need a little help, and if I can give it, why not?" She felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a combination of admiration, surprise, and the slow realization that this man, sitting across from her, casually sipping his milkshake, was someone who didn't need to show off wealth or status to make a difference. His character, his heart, was what truly mattered. For the first time that evening, Emily felt completely present, completely connected, not to the idea of a perfect date, but to the reality of witnessing genuine compassion. The diner, the flickering neon lights, the worn vinyl booths, all of it faded into the background. All that mattered was the simple, Profound impact of one person choosing to make life a little easier for another. And Emily knew, without a doubt, that this first date was already unforgettable. Emily had already been impressed by Daniel's quiet kindness when he helped the young mother and her child, but she had no idea what was about to unfold. As they returned to their booth, sipping their milkshakes and trying to catch their breath after laughing over some story Daniel had shared, Emily noticed that the atmosphere in the diner had subtly shifted. Patrons were turning toward the counter, whispering to one another with curious smiles, while the young mother's small boy fidgeted nervously in his seat. Daniel's calm gaze followed their movements, and Emily realized he was aware of every little detail happening around him. Moments later, the waitress approached their booth, carrying a small, neatly folded envelope. She placed it carefully in front of Daniel with a quiet nod. Emily's curiosity spiked. What could it be? Daniel opened the envelope, and inside, he found a handwritten note and a few folded bills. Emily leaned in, reading over his shoulder as Daniel's eyes softened. The note was from the young mother, expressing her heartfelt gratitude for his generosity. She had been struggling to afford food for herself and her child, and Daniel's quiet act of paying for her meal had eased their burden, even if just for one evening. The note asked nothing in return, but promised that she and her son would pay it forward someday. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. She looked around, noticing the other diners' expressions. Some were smiling, some whispered softly, and a few had tears in their eyes. Daniel hadn't sought attention or praise. His kindness was simple, unassuming, yet profound. The ripple effect was immediate. Emily could see how a single, thoughtful gesture had inspired everyone, present to pause, to reflect, and to feel the impact of genuine humanity. Turning to Daniel, she whispered, almost in awe, You did all this without even making it obvious." He nodded, his smile gentle and humble. "Kindness doesn't need an audience," he said. "Some people just need a hand, and if I can help, why not?" In that moment, Emily realized the truth she had been searching for, not in fancy dinners or grand gestures, but in quiet, selfless actions. Her first date had turned into an unforgettable lesson about compassion, generosity, and the power of doing the right thing without expecting anything in return. The flickering neon lights, the worn-out booths, the ordinary diner, they all faded away in significance. What remained was the warmth of witnessing humanity at its best, and Emily knew that this night and this man had changed her perspective forever. The diner, once ordinary and overlooked, had become a stage for something extraordinary, leaving everyone who witnessed it quietly amazed and inspired.